I'm back. This is Van Diesel, not Dev. Dev will be coming back within like another week or so. So, anyways, let's get this started. I'm running out of ideas, so I just chose to put Megacolony here. So let's do this. So first off, starting Vanguard is Machining Worker Ant. So basically, when Murder Pawn, you get to draw a card, and then when the order comes out, if your opponent's grade 1 or greater, you get a quick shield ticket. That quick shield ticket, in this deck in particular, that 5k shield could just save you or break you. Who knows, really? But it could save you, effectively. Triggers. 4 draws because this deck has a hand problem, so if you want to not... If you don't want to be Callan Kessler from Yu-Gi-Oh!, the guy who chooses to have no hand cards at all, then don't run draws. But if you want to actually be a smart person and not leave it up to luck, run draw triggers. So, your choice, really. 8 crits because this deck needs a lot of aggressive... Well, it's already aggressive as is, but like you want to pressure on those criticals to force your opponent to be smart about guarding. And then finally, a heal trigger because you actually need heals. If I wanted, I could have just made this a crit too, and I was tempted to do it. But no, logic has to take over. So now to grade 1s. 2 copies of Spiteful Hopper. Auto Rearguard Circle. When placed, Soul Blast 1 and one of your other units get +6 power to end of turn. And if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, countercharge 1. This deck counterblasts a lot. Like, a lot. So what this thing does is pretty much... And this deck has, like, plenty of soul. So what this thing does is you get a Soul Blast, which isn't going to come back to bite you in the ass pretty much until, like, really late game. And even then, you should still be fine. You give a unit +6k, and then you get to countercharge 1 if you have no cards to face up in damage zone, which is really useful because your opponent might try to damage starve you. So you can just take advantage of it, get power, and then countercharge, and then fuck them over next turn, which is really useful. So 2 copies. I would say 4, but I kind of messed up on the numbers of the deck, and I don't exactly know what I should take out for it, so I just took out this thing. But yeah. Now to other cards. 4 copies of Small Captain Butterfly Officer. So, Skill Auto Rearguard Circle. Oh, it's 6k base, by the way. When placed, rest this unit, choose up to one of your other rearguards, and it gets +10k power to end of turn. If you chose, at the end of that turn, put that unit into your soul, and if you do, you get to countercharge. So pretty much, it's 6k base, but when it's placed, you're just going to rest it normally, and then pick another unit, give it +10k, and at the end of the turn, you get to shove it to soul and countercharge. 1 helps with the soul, 2 free countercharge, and if I'm correct, I don't think you can put 2 butterfly officers on the same unit. I think you have to spread them out, so don't like try to stack it all on one unit, because that might end up being wrong. Just put it on 2 different units. And then finally our last grade 1, 4 copies of Machining Lady Bomber. Auto Rearguard Circle, when placed, Soul Blast 1 and rest this unit, 8k base by the way. Choose any number of all fighters' rearguards and rest them. If your opponent has 3 or less rearguards, countercharge 1. Okay, this is here for a premium deck, which I'm not building, but I just wanted to put it out there. And then second off, just to countercharge. So, as you can see, all the grade 1s do countercharge abilities. But that's for good reason. The deck does actually counterblast a fair amount. So, what you do here is you Soul Blast 1, you rest this unit, and then everything is rest. So, your opponent cannot stand, you rest all your shit, and then if your opponent has 3 or less rear guards, you get a free counter charge. That's mostly why you run this. But if you wanted to play the premium version, you would shove this in the deck of Optirandus. If you don't know what he does, he's counterblast 2. For the rest, during your opponent's next turn, they can't call rear guards. So pretty much what you do is you Lady Bomber the field, and then you Optirandus him, so he can't do shit. Yeah. Okay. Next up is 1 copy of Water Gang. Auto Rearguard Circle. When it attacks, counterblast 1, shove it to soul, and draw 2. This card is useful because it gets the hand and it gets the soul. It's only at 1 copy though, because to be completely honest, you don't need all that much. It does perfectly fine on its own. Seeing 1 is pretty much going to net you the game because it will get you the hand resources. From my experiences, it will get you the hand resources. So having only 1 still nets you the game if you can find it. And this deck can, I want to say it's decently turbo it out, but I'm not so sure. But even then, it can still beat the shit out of people without it. So now on to real cards. 4 copies of Burner Ant. It has 2 skills, 8k base. Act Rearguard Circle, rest this unit. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as it. Move it to an opponent's open rearguard circle. Okay, so pretty much you take an opponent's unit, shove it to an open rearguard circle. Like say the very back circle behind the vanguard is open, and then they have a blaster blade right in front of this unit. What you do is you rest this unit, target the blaster blade, shove it to the back, which means they can't touch it. Then again, you can't touch it either, but still, they just can't touch it. They can't use it to boost. They can't use it to attack. More likely than not, they're going to kill it, but making them kill a unit just for the sake of killing it is really effing useful and a really good thing to me. I don't know why, I just like seeing it happen. And then other skill, act rearguard circle, discard a hand card, stand it, and gets plus 5k ton of turn. So 13k base, it can hit force numbers now, and all it does is cost a discard, and then you can just fuck with your opponent's field, why don't you? It's really useful. 4 copies. Now I have 4 copies of Nasty Smog. Skill, continuous rearguard circle. All of your opponent's units in the same column as his units cannot intercept. Yep, it's exactly what it sounds like. Lockdown intercept. Gordon, nope. Blaster Blade, nope. Whatever that card was, like it's plus 10k. Toolbox Wallaby, nope. And it just locks down intercepts. It's really useful. And if you have 2 on the field, nothing can intercept, unless you're playing an Excel deck. But then the other skill, continuous rearguard circle. All opponents' rearguards in the back row of the same column as the unit cannot stand during his or her stand phase. Walking down units. Wingull, nope. You ain't standing today. Razors, nope, but they're probably going to stand next turn. Anything from Novas, nope, but they're probably going to stand. But who cares? They get locked down. They just can't do shit. And that's what the useful part about Nasty Smog, because if you call 2, you just lock down your opponent's 2 side columns. Next up is 4 copies of Bloody Hercules. Skill, auto rearguard circle, 1 place, soul blast 1, and this unit gets plus 6k power until end of turn. Auto vanguard rearguard, when its attack hits, countercharge 1, and one of your units gets plus 6k power until end of turn. That, on one hand, is very useful, because the soul is kind of easy, which means it gets a plus 6k, which means it can hit anything. But then the other one, that's my favorite skill. The one that hits, you get countercharge and give another unit plus 6k. I love that one. Because obviously, this deck counterblast, we haven't seen it yet, but this deck counterblast a lot. But when your opponent is trying to depend on which one they want to guard, between something that has crit on it and something that does this, they're probably going to guard this unless they're really in that bad of a situation. Honestly, I would suggest if you're in that situation, if you drive check a crit and you have a Bloody Hercules or something else on the field, give the extra critical to the other thing and then power up Bloody and then power it up and then ram Bloody Hercules into them. Because if you do that, they are guaranteed, especially if they're about to die, do that to guarantee them to really think about it and make them waste hand cards. Because they will waste hand cards just to stop unit that can countercharge, especially if it's in that crucial of a moment. So, Bloody Hercules, my favorite thing of pressure. I love putting pressure on my opponent, and that's exactly why I love Bloody Hercules. Okay, next up is our grade 3s. So, this grade 3 lineup is going to be extremely weird, considering I run 2 of every grade 3 except for the main one. So then, 2 copies of Machining Centipede. This deck is obviously a machining deck if you have not figured that out. It's just with the budget, which means Hornet and Mantis don't exist here. So then skill, 12k base and protective. Skill, act Vanguard or Rearguard. Counterblast 1, choose the same number of opponent's units as the number of your rest rearguards, and until end of your opponent's next turn, they lose Twin Drive, Intercept, and Boost, and cannot gain those skills, and then you get to stand this unit. So this unit's at rest, you can stand it, and then pick units equal to the number of your rest rearguards before you stand this thing, counting this one, and they lose Twin Drive, Intercept, and Boost. That's useful, because you can, if you have 5, which this deck can do very easily, you can just prevent the 3 back row units from boosting, prevent the 2 front row units from intercepting, prevent the Vanguard from Twin Driving. Do note, if they do ride over their Vanguard, they can get the skills back. So, but technically, but they're not actually getting the skills back, so if they ride or call over, the skills come back, but not before. 2 copies of Machining Stag Beetle. Skill, auto Vanguard or Rearguard. 1 placed from hand, call up to 2 cards from your soul to Rearguard as rest, and if this unit was placed on Vanguard Circle, it gets the original power of all those units combined. So, in this case, you would normally just call this thing. If you have to write it, it's not a bad thing. It's just not preferred. You call it or write it, you get out 2 units from the soul. Hopefully, they're both like, okay, hopefully one of them's a Lady Bomber, and then like the other one, hopefully it's like something useful like a Bloody Hercules, because this deck can stand rearguards easily. And then you can just power up or just like set up your field. So this card like is actually important. I would say put it at 4, but I wanted to run all the cards because they're all useful in their own way. So I decided to run all of them. And this deck does synergize with all of them. 2 copies of Machining Ornamental. So skill out of Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. 1 place, rest all of the rearguards. So Yeah, including your opponent. And then resolve one of the effects below. And if you want to resolve both, Soul Blast 1 grade 3 with machining and its card name to use both. So then, the first option, choose all rest rearguards, including your opponents, and they get plus 5k power at the end of turn. So you would only do that if you just want to pump up your field. But then the skill that I use solely for the sake that it fucks over the opponent in this deck, your opponent can only stand 2 units during his or her next stand phase. So if they're playing Excel, only 2 units can stand. Boom, bitches. You can't do crap. You're done. Just stop trying to move. So that's the useful part about it. It just prevents the opponent from standing. And what's even better is that with this deck in particular, whatever they do stand is more likely than not going to be weakened. The bad part about this, though, is anything they ride over is just going to come back as stand. So if they have the Vanguard at rest, you can just ride over it and then it will become stand again. But, oh, this is good, especially if they don't have a grade 3 in hand. They're just locked down, and I've been in this situation. Well, I've used this against someone before in that situation, which is really fun to do against someone. Dev should know, because I did it against him, and I enjoyed every moment of it. Okay, finally, our main grade 3, Machining Spark Hercules. Skill, act Vanguard Circle only. Once per turn, counterblast 2. Choose 5 of your rear guards, stand in them, and then this unit gets and they get plus 5 till end of turn. And then choose all of your opponent's rear guards, units, not rear guards, rest them, and they lose 5,000 power to the end of the opponent's next turn. That is why Hercules is good. That's why this deck is built the way it is. Because your units get plus 5 by counterblasting 2, and then your opponent loses 5 till the end of their next turn. So if they ride over or call over, yeah, that stops them, but still, you're weakening them to beat the shit out of them. It's a 10k difference, which means they're going to have to guard at least 10k more for each attack. And what's even better is because of how logic works, if you were to use ornamental and they don't ride or whatever they do, whatever stands is going to be extremely weakened because of this, because it lasts for their turn, which is awesome. Thank you, God, for making this unit. And then the other skill, act Vanguard Circle once per turn, put a grade 2 or less rearguard into the soul, and this unit gets plus 5k power for each of your opponent's units and rest. Which is really useful because your opponent's more likely going to have like 3 more units in rest, shove this thing to soul, get like 15k maybe, and it still pumps up for numbers. You use that to like fill up your soul, or you just use it to beat the shit out of your opponent with Hercules while they're at like 7k or 8k base because of its skill. But yeah, now onto the gifts. So then, imaginary gift, protect 1, just the simple PG, 4 copies. When you acquire, just put into your hands the Sentinel, and then when it's placed, discard a card, and then and one of your units cannot be hit till end of battle. So it's just the classic PG. Now, 4 copies of Protect 2. It's pretty much like Excel 1 and Force 1 had a baby, where you put it on the rearguard circle, it gets plus 5 power, and then when it intercepts, it gets plus 10k shield, which is useful. This deck doesn't necessarily need it too much, but if you just really want to be that guy and put pressure, you can. Well, that was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment what decks you guys want, and subscribe to Deb. If you want to go subscribe to my channel, just go look up Vandy Ezel on YouTube. So this is it. Bye.